Just so you know, I'm Holly. I'm co-founder of the Forge Communications PR agency, blah, 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 sales pitch, come talk to us about PR, etc. But as I said, far more interesting people who are here today, who are here with me today. So we will kick off with Huib. As I've been reliably informed, I pronounce dreadfully, but he is the author of a wonderful book called The Social Brand. He is a lifelong marketer who was inspired by his father when he used to make them try different products and test different marketing strategies. His father was marketing director at Unilever, am I right? Yeah. And now he is the founder of Tenzing, this wonderful drink in his hand, which is better than Dash. Sorry, I had to say that.
Oh, no.
He doesn't think that, by the way. I think that. Only because it's got something that makes me stay awake and makes me act like this. It's named after Sherpa Tenzing, which is lovely. So one of the first 2 people to summit Everest. And that's what you can do if you drink Tenzing. And also if you have a tribe behind you carrying your bags. So it's a hit of natural energy. And we have the lovely Pippa Murray, who I have to say I'm a bit of a fangirl. Pip Nut is like my all-time favourite. It's that snack that I have in the evening on a rice cake, and because I have rice cakes because I'm so healthy, but I don't feel guilty because I know it's really good for me and it's really lovely. And I have the huge vats of it, like the massive ones, yeah. And the kids think I'm crazy, but they actually like it too, so it's fine. But Pippa's got a really wonderful story, knows all about tribes, has the most incredibly loyal followers on social, and people are literally nuts about it. You've probably seen the ad campaign with the squirrels, which is just wonderful. It's a beautiful piece of advertising, really inspired, and such an authentic brand. It's lovely to see. And Stuart Forsyth, who is the co-founder of the world's best coffee brand called Minor Figures, which is a wonderful, sustainable, plant-based and ethical brand of coffee. Stuart was also the founder of Keep Cup, so has a huge history in sustainability and altogether sort of doing the right thing and being an all-round sort of, decent guy. So we're here to talk about tribes. The anthropological term of a tribe is a human social group. In this context, of course, we're talking about tribes of people who are brought together by their collective love of a brand or a purpose. So I'm going to kick off by asking Huib, should you build a social media fan base first, or should you be securing your distribution for your product? What's the first step that you should do? Should you start to build that tribe, get people to love you, or should you make sure that they can actually buy you somewhere?
So I think it really depends on the category you're in, and I think one of the first things I'd like to say anyway is like, don't take anyone's advice on anything, because I think and one of the things we discussed a bit before is there's so many here in the startup world, these stupid rules people follow, like your first 1,000 fans, I hear that one a lot, or start with Y, and it's all bullshit. Yeah. Literally, it's not. So if you got to look at who wrote that or who came up with that, and like the first 1,000 followers was a Wired editor who came up with that from the music industry, and his thought was, if you have 1,000 fans, you can actually pay your bills. If you charge them $100 a year roughly in CDs, that's how you can just earn a living. That was his thought, not that you should start a business with the first 1,000 fans. So I think it's very important to look at who the source is, and then so if you launch a drink, for instance, then it's better to listen to me maybe a bit, and or to the Minor Figures, and I think it's really important to note that. Yeah. And then my personal opinion on that topic. So my background's always been in marketing, but all I did for the first 3 years was sales. Just sales. Make sure it's available everywhere, because it's no use marketing anything if you're not available. And I think that's one. And 2, I also like to point out that no one cares about your brand. Really. Maybe Pippa Nut. But I think I had the greatest example. We used to work in Citizen M when we started to keep costs low. And there was a guy who drank a Tenzing twice a day. And after half a year, I thought I should go to him now and tell him I'm the founder. I walked up to him a bit nervous and I said, I just want to introduce myself. I'm the founder of Tenzing. And he goes, what? He was an Aussie guy. Turned out to be an Aussie guy. He goes, what's Tenzing? He goes, then you have 2 a day. And no, I don't. And then at the end, the blue drink. That's it. So like, you know, it just gives you a sense of that people do not, you know, yes, there's a small group of people that do, and you can, there's other ways we can talk about it later, but I think that's the first. So I would literally go like get as much distribution as you possibly can.
Yeah. And Pippa, do you think that when you first went to retailers with your gorgeous, amazing peanut butter, did you find that having a social following was important? Did they ask about that? Did they look at that?
Yeah, I think it's funny. I was actually talking about this with my team. Is like when you're pitching to buyers, sometimes when you get to them, I don't know if you find this, but sometimes when you get to the marketing slides, their eyes can start to glaze a bit. And even though I think it's really important that within the sort of pitch that you talk about your purpose, where you started, your story, I think it's really important to embed it in the fact that you're a small brand, and that you do have people that are willing to buy your product and love it. When it comes to buyers, I don't think it's the fundamental piece of the puzzle that they most care about, but you do have to talk about it. So it's not to say it's not important. But I think they're looking at it at a completely different lens. What I do think it does give you is credibility when you're speaking specifically to buyers. And the same goes for PR. Like I say, the PR that we got, and still to this day when we get, so often it's that credibility piece that you're trying to build and that broader awareness that you're using it for. But and you almost use those assets to kind of validate it for the buyer that you're not just, just operating out of a...
Not a fly-by-night.
Exactly. There's some grounding and some meat behind the brand itself.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's one strand that I think it's important to play upon, but not totally fundamental.
And in terms of the tone of voice, and Stuart, it's probably one for you because having looked at minor figures, you've got a very kind of distinct tone of voice. You're very, very authentic as a brand. And in fact, you say that you don't have a mission statement, but if you did, you'd be like the best coffee for coffee lovers everywhere or something like that, which is like lovely in its simplicity, I have to say. But in terms of that, that's an interesting thing there in terms of authenticity, because a lot of brands will have agencies who run their social media channels. At what point do you think you have to hand that over, or do you not think you ever should? How do you develop that tone of voice for social? Because I think one of the wonderful things is when a brand comes back to you as a punter and you're like, oh my God, they spoke to me, they love me, you know what I mean? And how do you feel about that?
Well, firstly, I think that me and Huib are going to agree on a lot of stuff that most people don't really think about your brand as much as you do. And you're completely obsessed with it all the time. In terms of the getting a tribe or getting followers, that seems to be the result of a lot of other stuff you do. It shouldn't be the goal, and you shouldn't be driving to get followers or to build a tribe. Do all the other stuff, get your product on shelf, sell it, get your mission right, talk about that, meet people and talk to people about it. And so you can kind of reinforce what you're doing, and the more you sort of say it and the more you get into it, the more you understand yourself in that regard. Minor Figures has gone through several iterations, by the way, to get to where we are today. So, and then with that, followers will tend to come, and maybe they're slower than you want, or maybe they all come in a rush because you got some piece of press. But we don't pay too much attention to the sort of the numbers and the likes, that sort of stuff.
And you guys, do you when you started out with your brands, did you do your social media and build your tribes yourself? Is that what you did?
Yeah, I think so. Looking back, I would have rather not done it.
Yeah.
So again, in the beginning, so we got a student. So I did it right in the beginning because we did everything very low cost.
Sure.
And I just went to King's College. I did a talk there, and I said, does anyone want to get involved? You can work for Tenzing free of charge. I'm not going to give you any money, but you're going to get a lot of exposure. And then about 20 people signed up, of which one still works with us, and one did our social media. And so she was working, from the hotel lobby, like a couple of hours a day sometimes.
Yeah.
But I don't think we got any sales out of that at all. So I think, you bet, like, open your Instagram account and say something like, we'll be back when we have time, or something like opening accounts, or, I think just make it into like that tone of voice. I think that's very important, but I don't think you'll get, unless you, I think that's why it's again very different for every product. I think we all probably have quite products that are kind of either quite big or not. There's not one specific scene they really fit to, right? I think if you've got like a vegan product, for instance, then go all in tribe, right? Find those vegans, find the ones, you know, which are easy to find. You're like the Facebook pages where vegans come together, and if you can somehow infiltrate, then yes, you know. So, you know, do that well. And I find, so if there is a tribe thing, so we did that, for instance, with gyms, you know, but not as, you know, Nocco, the brand, they did that way better than us. They was like, you know, all in on gyms. Hopefully we will be bigger eventually, but you know, so we did choose our, like, you know, it's health, whole foods, you know, and then we sampled a lot. So I think, yeah, I'm not sure you should do it depending on your brand.
And if I just jump in, Minor Figures, I mean, people may not have seen this, or maybe they have seen it. And we're talking about Instagram. Tribes actually is more about sales for me anyway, but if we're talking about social media, I was with the guy from Dirty Lemon, and from what is reported, they spent $1 million a year on Instagram for a few years until Coke came in, and Coke said, what are you doing? And they cut it off. Now, whether that's true or not, that's what was sort of reported at the time. And if you look at the opposite, Minor Figures, we've actually never even taken our own photographs. Our Instagrams just run reposting other people's stuff. So we run it at, it's just a super low cost, you know, we're sort of at the 2 heartbeat thing. We're not really that concerned about, you know, we feel like we pick images which we like and are fun and tell more of a story. But in terms of getting your costs down, that's one way to do it, definitely.
And in terms of, I suppose the other thing is, like you mentioned about sales, about, you know, that's in terms of tribes,
yes.
That's how you see it. And you talked about having a specific kind of, maybe if you have a niche that you're more focused on, then you've probably got more value in terms of the social media aspect. But I guess we're told about tribes quite often and how important it is to have them. What is their purpose? You know, what would you say is the most important thing about why build? Why try and build? Why invest in building tribes of people who will follow you? What do you want them to do?
I mean, word of mouth marketing is just it is gold. I mean, it's incredibly difficult to maintain and scale, but certainly at that start of your business, like they are those advocates that hopefully are your loyalists that are going to be repeat purchasing. And I think that, so we did a survey to some of our customers, and over a third of them had found out about it initially through word of mouth. So advocacy for us is actually a big part of it, and it was a big part, and it is a big part of the campaign that we're running on the tubes at the moment. So I really love it, because if someone else can tell someone else how great our product is, I think it lands so much better than if we're shoving it down someone's throat. So I think it, for me, is important to that sense, that to build that kind of cohort of people that really, you know, I hope.
Did you go into retailers first? Was Pip Nut's first thing to go into retail, which is quite a long sales cycle and quite hard? Or did you do something else to get that word of mouth?
Yeah, I mean, Selfridges was our first customer, and then we built it through that. Yeah. But I do think it's difficult now, because the algorithms on Instagram will change, so you're having to spend more in order to even reach your followers, let alone gain more. So it is more challenging, I think, if you're starting up now. But when I started up 5 years ago, actually, it was quite easy and accessible to grow your following quite quickly. So it may be that actually some of the tools that we were using maybe 3 years ago building the brand actually are shifting now.
Sorry.
No, I think, so for instance, I use LinkedIn a lot, and I think, so I do think it is, so obviously I was quite, you know, saying no to it, but I think you know, it becomes, why is it important later? Because I think first you got to get it out there, and then it is what Pip was saying. You have like a pyramid there, and it is kind of true. I think we got the top, like the nodes. So for us, that node, it's named after Huib Tenzing, that we really care about the environment, and we do all these projects to make it better. That we do our running club and clean air running, all that kind of stuff. So that's a very small group of people that know, but they do, I think, start to care. So there is a couple of people out there that do maybe care. And sometimes we get a mail saying, "Oh, we love your brand," and on LinkedIn I get a lot of responses on that. But you've got your brand has got to be good for someone who just walks into Tesco or Sainsbury's and say, "Oh, that looks good." You know, so I think the most important thing is like start with your product, and I think we all did that. Probably like the product itself's got to be really good. Then the packaging's got to be amazing, got to kind of sell itself. Or we've also gone through, like, the can didn't look anything like this when I launched. It's like lean startup, go to market quickly, and then learn on the market. And then, like, you know, then your POS should be great, and then you know, so it's just like the further out from the product, the less impact it has, effectively. So I think that's the most important thing. But I do think you can get, you know, a loyal following for sure later on in the process for us at least, I think.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point about LinkedIn, isn't it? Because when you think of social media and tribe building, you tend to think of Instagram, to an extent Facebook, and LinkedIn is actually also incredibly important because there's a lot of people.
So they're not stopping. I mean, basically, it's no use. I know from my Red Bull days, we had, when I left, we had like 40 million Facebook friends, and we posted, and organic reach was 150. And people, when I say that, people go, 150,000? No, 150. And that is pretty epic content we spend millions on. So they just shut it all down, and then you pay to see your own fans, right? So, and when you're small, you get away with it a bit if you're less than 5,000 followers. But I think it's just no use, actually. You just have to use that as a paid platform for later. But I think, LinkedIn now, and I find those platforms. So we're doing a lot on Strava now. So Strava, because we have a run club. Strava is obviously a new platform, and they want to grow, so they want to help brands grow their platform. While Facebook and Instagram want to get money from brands, they don't want to help. So you've just got to think what that platform wants from you, and then dive into one of those that is still growing.
Yeah, I think that's actually really interesting. Looking at, is there any other?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that. I mean, if you take tribe to mean, who's going to buy your product rather than who's going to look at it on a digital platform. The purpose of tribes for a startup is velocity. As a business, you got to get enough momentum to lift off the ground as quickly as you possibly can. So you must know your tribe so that you can sell to them right away. So why I asked Pippa about going to the retailers is if your plan is to go into Sainsbury's and that's your outlet to sell your product, that sales cycle can be long. That could be 6 months for a range review. They might say no, you're another 6 months away and a year away after that. But if you know that your product is for rock climbers, well then you get into all the rock climbing places and you begin to sell it there and you begin to build the momentum there. And that's how you get the quick sales. You get them right away. So for Minor Figures example, we're a coffee business. So while we are really struggling in retailers, particularly in the UK, we sell super well through coffee shops because the sales cycle is instant. The tribe of baristas is highly, highly, highly networked. So super sticky. If they take a photo of our product in Los Angeles, someone in Korea messages the next day, someone in Melbourne the next day, and someone after that. So it is powerful that we know who we like, which is coffee people. We can speak their language, we can access them, and we can sell to them super quick. And now we've built up a lot of momentum and the business is running, and we've got a bit of time behind us before we need to go into what you would consider the mass market, the people who've never heard of us or don't worry about us. So from a tribe perspective, as a startup, it's super important you key in on who that is and where they are. If it's a CrossFit gym, if it's a rock climber, if it's, I don't know, like whatever, people blowing up car tires. So I don't know.
That really, popular sport, that one. Blowing up car tires. So I love doing that. I'm going home to do it now, actually. Just a question which is probably more focused on that sort of digital platform. But I do want to just sort of come back to the idea of doing, of looking for those slightly more alternative and lateral tribe audiences. The point you made about Strava, the point you're making about rock climbing and people blowing up tyres, those sorts of things are, it is always really, really interesting, and there's a huge point in doing that because you get a loyal audience there, don't you? But in terms of when you look at the kind of the mainstream popular influencers on things like Instagram, and you look at the YouTubers who are charging a phenomenal amount of money, which is something that hardly any new startup is going to be able to afford and invest in. This is a really tricky question because I'll probably alienate half the people in the room here, but do you think there's a point to doing that at that early in your life cycle? Or is that when you've sort of reached a point of critical mass, then you can start to pay those people? What do you think?
I think influencer marketing right now is really important. I don't think you need to pay them though. We do a lot of influencer send outs. And actually I think in the early days, so in like the first couple of years when you are doing absolutely everything as the brand owner, your ops, your marketing and your sales, you're going to every event, and actually a lot of these influencers are at those events that you might be, at BFit or whatever it is that you're at. And actually you can build relationships with the actual people themselves, and actually some of the people that I met in the first couple of years were at that point sort of more micro-influencers, are now growing and flourishing into being bigger influencers in their own right. And actually by building some of those early stage foundations with some of those guys, actually we've been able to still work with them now, and they are constantly posting about our products without actually having to be paid to do so. So I think it's quality rather than quantity when it comes to influencers. Really focus on growing and building relationships and engaging with influencers online, not being too broad brush about it and just targeting everyone and anyone, because that's expensive as well. But we send out loads of products. We'll tend to tie it into campaign moments, and it just helps amplify what we're doing. So at the moment we're sending out sort of 200 squirrel boxes where you can we've adopted red squirrels for all our influencers. It's really cute. It comes with a fluffy toy, and nearly about 70% of them will post about it to their fans, and that for us is a really effective way of being able to get reach and advocacy, because hopefully they'll talk about our products as well. So actually I do think it's a really effective and relatively cheap way of reaching a targeted group of people, and not having to pay through the nose for it. So yeah, it's something that we, even going into next year, it's something we're going to continue to invest in.
And do you feel generally, as a group, that the higher the following, the better the influencer? I mean, because obviously those are the ones that are hugely expensive. Is that sort of? How do you judge? Do you look at following, or do you look at engagement, and how do you work that out?
I mean, you can't actually. Most of them won't actually, unless you're paying for a social media to post about you. They'll have to show their stats behind what they're doing, and actually engagement, I think, is more important. And I'm pretty sure you guys probably.
Yes, exactly. I just annoyingly I fell for it once, and I did, and went for this influencer agency and blah blah blah, and we spent a bit of money, and it's just so bad. It's just that, it's exactly like Pip. You've got to do it real. As soon as you start thinking, can we let someone post about us, then your whole mind is wrong, right? I think you have to go exactly. People they care about your products, and and I think they are those people, and it's finding them, sending them stuff, and having an actual relationship with them, as opposed to like influencer marketing. Yeah, I'm not a big believer, but again, I think if you have a specific niche you're going after, which I think is important. I think that is basically what we're all saying. If you start with rock climbers, or whatever, because then you can oversee that, and then find if you have a product that you want to start there, try and find the best one and get that personal relationship. Again, our Red Bull athletes is a good example. We had an internal management team, or they managed the athletes themselves. They all had a relationship directly with that athlete. And I think going through an agency and letting them pay someone to then pay you, it just doesn't work, I think. No.
It's I suppose a key takeout would be to think about exactly who those people are, who is your tribe, identify who those people are that you think are going to be most relevant to you, and then try and get to know them, follow what they're doing, follow what they're saying, exactly. and take that time. I think, the more time you take to properly get to know what they're saying and what they stand for, the more personalised you can be, rather than just sort of spreading something out too broad. Just a couple of more questions that we wanted to ask, and then I'll open it up. And this is one thing that brands do a lot, right? They give stuff away. Does that undervalue, devalue, add value? How do you see that working when you're, even from a sampling point of view to a social media giveaway point of view? How does that work for your brand? Is it worth doing?
I mean, we found that sampling is the number one way to drive sales. We started in Planet Organic, was our first, let's say, chain, and all of a sudden I remember the first month and we got the sales data, and we were the best selling drink in all Planet Organic. And I'm like, why is it? And we apparently sampled 20 times in that month. And they keep coming, and then the staff, all the Planet Organic staff, still love Tenzing, and they give out the best, who works hardest to get to Tenzing from the manager. So again, it's like that's a tribe. It's more about thinking about tribes that buy you, as opposed to some vague online tribe with an influencer leading it. So I think going sampling is just, and I think you'll probably so for you it's easier, even obviously because you've got not a chilled product, so you can probably give it away in goodie bags and stuff. I think. Giving away products is probably one of the most powerful things you can do, especially if it's new and it tastes good and it tastes different. I think, and you can tell the story, because I think, again, that's important, to have a story behind a genuine story.
I think a good point about how people first try your product, though, your point about it being chilled when the perfect serve is often referenced. And I think it is really important that you really think about that. So for us, actually, it's actually quite difficult to get people to try our products. We do have little squeeze packs, but actually the perfect serve for us is like on a slice of toast with some fresh berries. And actually, sometimes it's when we invest, if we're doing, we used to do this more, but you know, things like events with Nike and things like that, we'd really try and like make the perfect serve that real memorable moment. So yeah, if you're going to do it, try and really think about like the ways that you're serving it, especially if you haven't got a product that's just a packet of crisps that you can just like crack open and eat.
Yeah. What do you do with your coffee?
Yeah, same. I think sampling's key. So you have to sample, you have to get people to taste your products. The cheapest and easiest way for them to come back if they like it. It depends again on the type of product you have. So, you know, if it's a very expensive product, you're not going to be cracking open caviar, you know, and giving people samples. And again, it's the sort of thing like with these online followers, like we spoke about these influencers and stuff. If your product can be sold online and can be sold globally, then maybe that is a good way to go, because people can then access it right away digitally. But for a product like ours, we need availability. So if your product needs availability in a store, then don't worry about it. Just go and sell your product. In terms of, and then once you're selling, you've got to get people sampling. So you've got to get people trying.
Yeah. So really important to make sure people can try your products.